divine sonship on earth. Jesus spent this Thursday, his last day as a free man on earth, with his apostles and a few faithful, devoted disciples. After breakfast, he led them to a secluded spot on the Mount of Olives and taught them there. All 12 were present except for Judas. The apostles thought that Jesus had sent him to the city to arrange something for the Passover. Judas did not return to the camp until mid-afternoon, just before Jesus led the 12 to Jerusalem to participate in the Last Supper. On that last day, Jesus spoke for nearly 2 hours to about 50 of his most loyal followers and answered dozens of questions. The questions mainly concerned the relationship between the kingdom of heaven and the kingdoms of this world, and the relationship between sonship with God and citizenship under earthly governments. We have summarized this discourse, as well as the answers Jesus gave to the questions asked, in modern terms. Since the kingdoms of this world are material in nature, their governments often find it necessary to use physical force to maintain order. In the kingdom of heaven, however, true believers must never resort to physical force. It is a spiritual brotherhood consisting of sons of God born of the Spirit. Therefore, it can only be maintained by the power of the Spirit. Not exercising physical power is different from the right to maintain order within its own ranks and to discipline rebellious and unworthy members. Sonship in the spiritual kingdom and citizenship under a worldly government are not in conflict with each other. It is the believer's duty to give to the emperor what belongs to the emperor, and to God what belongs to God. There can be no contradiction between these two requirements, because one is material and the other spiritual. Unless an earthly ruler elevates himself to God and demands spiritual worship from his subjects. In such a case, you must worship only God and also try to bring this misguided earthly ruler to better insights so that he too comes to recognize the Father in heaven. You shall not spiritually revere earthly rulers, nor shall you use material means such as laws to advance the mission of the spiritual kingdom. Spiritual sonship will always have positive effects on society because its fruits, the brotherhood and service, are the cornerstones of society. The call to love of the spiritual kingdom will provide a counterbalance to the hatred into which warlike citizens have fallen. But your brother who is wandering in darkness will never be able to see the spiritual light of truth unless you stand right beside him and demonstrate unselfish social service. Then, through experiences of divine unselfish love, this fellow human being, blinded by hate, will have his eyes opened. As mortal beings, you are indeed also citizens of earthly kingdoms. You should be good citizens, all the more because you are also reborn sons of the heavenly kingdom. You bear a double responsibility, a duty to people and a duty to God, and thereby you automatically take on a third sacred responsibility: service to the brotherhood of God-knowing believers. You must support your believing brothers as they strive for the truth. Soon I will pour out the Spirit of truth on all flesh, and the fruits of the Spirit, along with active loving service. It will form the mighty social lever that will eventually tear apart the veil that envelops the peoples living in darkness. The Spirit of truth will be the cornerstone on which this lever can rest, thereby multiplying the forces exerted on the other side. Display wisdom and discernment in your dealings with unbelieving civil authorities. Show through tact that you are skilled in smoothing out minor disagreements and resolving trivial misunderstandings. Strive in all possible ways and in all things, except where your spiritual loyalty to the rulers of the universe is at stake, to live in peace with all people. Always be as wise as a serpent but as innocent as a dove. You will be all the better citizens for a worldly government because you have become an enlightened child of an eternal kingdom. Likewise, worldly authorities will become better administrators of civil affairs if they live in the truth of the gospel. The practice of unselfish service to one's fellow man and intelligent worship of God will make anyone who believes in the kingdom a better world citizen. An honest citizen with a sincere sense of responsibility for society will be sensitive to the spiritual call to sonship and the gospel of the heavenly kingdom. As long as worldly rulers seek to exercise authority over religious matters, you who believe in this gospel can only expect difficulties, persecution, and even death. But ultimately, the light that the Spirit spreads through you in the world, and the way you are willing to suffer and die for this gospel will illuminate the whole world. The truth will eventually bring about a worldwide separation between politics and religion. The persistent preaching of the good news of the kingdom will one day liberate all peoples and bring about intellectual and religious freedom. In times of persecution by powers that hate this gospel of joy and freedom, things will go well for you and the kingdom will thrive. But the heavenly kingdom here on earth will face a severe crisis in the period of that when the gospel is socially accepted. In times when it will be fashionable for people in high social positions to accept the gospel in name. Teach your children to remain faithful to the kingdom even in times of peace and prosperity. Do not tempt the angels who watch over you to lead you down difficult paths. They do this only as a loving disciplinary measure intended to save your soul when it is in danger of drowning in the sea of material prosperity. Remember that you are commanded to spread the good news. The simple message of the supreme desire to do the will of the Father, coupled with the supreme joy of the faith awareness of being a son of God. Let nothing distract you. Remain devoted to this one duty at all times. Let all humanity find enlightenment in the abundance of the loving spiritual assistance that you receive from the Spirit. The Spirit of truth will nourish you intellectually and help you in social service. None of these philanthropic activities should, however, be allowed to take the place of preaching the gospel. Good works are social byproducts that are brought to life by the sublime assistance of the Spirit of truth. Again, you must not try to spread the truth by means of the power of a civil government or by enacting laws. You may always strive to convince people intellectually, but do not dare to force them. Treat people in the same way you want them to treat you. When you who believe in the kingdom enter into service with a civil government, do your assigned work as well as possible, and act unselfishly in your work. Let the spiritual light shine through your work that is brought about by the ennobling communion with the indwelling Spirit of the eternal God. If an unbeliever proves to be a morally better public servant than you, then you should seriously question whether the roots of truth in your heart have withered, causing you to suffer from a lack of living water. Examine yourself to see if you are truly experiencing spiritual communion and performing unselfish social service. The awareness of sonship with God must inspire your entire service life. You must not become passive mystics or colorless ascetics. You should not become dreamers or people who merely drift along with charismatic individuals. Be gentle in your dealings with erring people. Be patient in your contact with the ignorant and tolerant when people provoke you, but you must also be courageous in defending righteousness. Proclaim the truth and be bold in preaching this gospel, even to the ends of the earth. This gospel is a living truth. It is like living seed that unfolds inexhaustibly from generation to generation and will manifest itself anew in every age. The revelation I have brought here on earth is a living revelation, and I desire that it bear fruit in every individual and every generation, in accordance with the laws of spiritual growth, multiplication, and development. From generation to generation, this gospel must exhibit increasing vitality and demonstrate greater depths of spiritual power. Beware that the message of the gospel does not become buried and reduced to a sacred memory of my person. And do not forget, we have not made a direct attack on the authority of those who sit on the seat of Moses. We have only offered them the new light, and they have forcefully rejected it. We have only challenged them by pointing out the spiritual unfaithfulness they commit. Unfaithfulness to the truth, which they have tried to capture in traditions, and of which they sincerely believe they are the protectors. We have only clashed with the established leaders when they opposed the preaching of the gospel to the children of men. Remember that you are commanded to preach only the good news. You must not attack the old customs. You must carefully mix the leaven of the new truth into the old beliefs. Let the Spirit of truth do his work. Let controversy arise only when those who despise the truth force it upon you. But when the stubborn unbeliever attacks you, do not hesitate to defend with force the truth that has saved and sanctified you. Always remember, in all the uncertainties of life, to love one another first and foremost. Do not argue with people, not even with unbelievers. Show mercy, even to those who treat you offensively. Conduct yourselves as loyal citizens, upright craftsmen, commendable neighbors, devoted family members, understanding parents, and sincere believers in the Father's kingdom. And my Spirit will be upon you, now and until the end of the world.